the legal structure on which your business is based is really the foundation. A good way to think of it is building a foundation for a house. Your business is a house, and the concrete foundation underneath it, that's all the legal documents and the legal structure that goes into it. If you're not really taking the time to set it up the correct way to protect your intellectual property and to create really good, effective contracts, the whole house is on a shaky foundation.
This is The Entrepreneur Way with Neil Ball. Unlocking the secrets of successful entrepreneurs 7 days a week. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter at Neil D. Ball. Napoleon Hill said the power of the mastermind is the driving force. To discover how you can unlock the potential in your business using the power of a mastermind, go to mastermindunlimited.com. And now, here is your host, Neil Ball.
Hello, it's Neil Ball. Thank you so much for joining me today on The Entrepreneur Way. The Entrepreneur Way is about the entrepreneur's journey, the vision, the mindset, the commitment, the sacrifice, failures and successes. I'm so excited to bring you our special guest today, Jared Stark. But before I introduce you to him, I have a quote for you. Johann Wolfgang van Gogh said, "Ignorant men raise questions that wise men answered 1,000 years ago." The Entrepreneur Way asks the questions so we all get the insight, inspiration and ideas to apply in our businesses. Jared, welcome to the show. Are you ready to share your version of the Entrepreneur Way with us?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for coming on the show, Jared. Jared Stark is a business attorney who works exclusively with startups and entrepreneurs. As an entrepreneur at heart, Jared left a high-paying in-house attorney position to start his own paperless, lean law firm, and he couldn't be happier. Jared, can you provide us with some more insight into your business and personal life to allow us to get to know more about what you do and who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a business attorney. I have my own law firm where I practice exclusively startup law for entrepreneurs. So I'm essentially an entrepreneur on two levels. I get to run my own business, and I get the privilege of helping other people start their businesses all day, which is great. When I went to law school, I knew before I even started that I wanted to run my own firm, that I was an entrepreneur, and that I wouldn't really be happy working for other people. And I think that's somewhat rare in law school. Everyone else was looking for that big firm job, and that's where I started out. But now I'm basically helping entrepreneurs every day and running my own business, and I couldn't be happier with it.
Okay. So I'm a new business. I've just started up and I come to see you. I want some advice about starting this business. What would you say to somebody?
That's a question I get a lot. Many people come to me when they're first starting their business. It's an idea, which is always the best way to start, with a nice clean slate. And, the first couple of things that people should look at, number one is whether or not they should incorporate their business, form some sort of business entity for it. Usually that's a good idea, especially if they're looking for investment. And now everyone is looking for angel investors. They're looking for venture capital money. So starting it the right way is important. I counsel clients on that a lot. So the first thing on your list should really be how you're going to set up the business in a way that allows you to have long-term success. And if you're looking to attract investors, how to do that. The other big point, number two, is protecting your intellectual property from the get-go. I help a lot of people file trademarks, protect their copyrights. Those things are it's so important to making sure that your brand is strong, that your brand is protected, and they should really be on your radar from day one.
Mm-hmm. And those are things, obviously, that start from the beginning. What other types of things do you get involved in later on with businesses?
Yeah, good question. So as businesses grow, like you said, the first things I start with normally are incorporating them, helping them with their trademarks, copyrights. And then as they grow, it might be helping businesses actually raise funds from investors. Another common thing is doing contracts. A lot of my clients are in the software space or they're in the manufacturing space, and they have a constant need to contract with suppliers, with vendors, with people they're building software for. And it's it's time consuming to do it the right way, but it really should be done right. Everything should be put on paper. Everyone wants to work on a handshake, and sometimes it's nice and it's easy, but it can blow up on you.
Yeah. So what benefit is there to somebody for using a specialist like yourself compared to a generalist law firm?
So, many lawyers are good at many things, and I certainly don't want to badmouth anyone. I know lots of lawyers are great at different practices, but I focus just on one thing, just on helping businesses, particularly startups and entrepreneurs. And that means that sometimes I'm more well-versed in the nuances, whereas a generalist may have a good overview of how a contract is formed, what should go into a contract generally, what a trademark is generally. But I do this day in and day out. Much to my wife's dismay, I probably dream about contracts and talk about trademarks in my sleep. So, I tend to just know the nuances, and any specialist is going to know the nuances of really their field. You have to, like being an entrepreneur in any field, you have to eat, sleep, and dream your business.
And what do you enjoy most about what you do?
That's a great question. So I'm going to answer that with hopefully a little bit of a story. When I was working for a law firm before I was here, I didn't really like practicing law all that much. I was working for a big corporate firm with big corporate clients doing sort of rote, boring stuff. And then I started to help a few friends who were starting businesses. And I realized that I could combine my entrepreneurial mindset with helping other entrepreneurs. And I find that that's enjoyable. The most enjoyable part is helping people take a dream that they have that maybe they've been mulling over for weeks or months. They've been drawing up on their whiteboard, taking that dream and helping them turn it into a reality, actually putting it on paper, creating the company, the corporation for it, creating the initial investment documents, creating the trademarks and getting it all protected, helping people take that dream to the next level and just seeing how in love with the idea they are is the best part.
And what is it that drives you?
It's not necessarily looking at my ROI. It's not looking at, how much money I make this year or the revenue or anything like that. To me, it's twofold. Number one, it is helping people start their businesses. I get genuine enjoyment from helping people start businesses. And the other side of it is building something myself. I think I'm just in love with the idea of building something.
So you've already alluded to the fact that you dream of contracts in your sleep.
Yeah, I'm going to regret that. That's embarrassing, but it's true.
How do you relax when you're not working in your business?
So I try to go to the gym, pretty religiously. I go to the gym 3 days a week on a set schedule, for that hour or so at a time. I have my music on, and I am kind of just in my own world. And it's one way to get away, get a nice break.
Do you have any entrepreneurial role models?
Yeah, I have a few. I've got one, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who sometimes is a little bit out of left field. People don't always recognize it. And then another big one of mine is Richard Branson.
Okay, thank you for that. Richard Branson comes up quite a bit, but why have you picked Arnold Schwarzenegger?
I think he flies under the radar sometimes, but I think he also typifies the American dream. I think he's really an interesting case. He came from a small town in Austria. He dreamed of moving to America and making it big as an actor. And you know what? Everyone doubted him, and I'm sure as an entrepreneur, people doubt your dream. They tell you it can't be done. Well, he did it against all odds. He came to the United States, and then he managed to be successful in everything he did. Many people don't know this, but he was an entrepreneur first. He actually had a couple successful businesses. Then he was a successful bodybuilder, perhaps the most successful bodybuilder of all time, one of the most successful actors of all time. Became a politician, and while he certainly had some well-publicized missteps along the way, I think that he is really amazing in that he's achieved everything he set out to achieve, and did it from a position of as an outsider.
Yeah, Jared, what I'd like to do now is talk to you about the time before you were an entrepreneur. What difficulties did you have to overcome when you started your business?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because I'm in a bit of a unique position as an attorney and an entrepreneur. Many businesses don't take a certain qualification or a certain degree to start. Starting a law firm is a little bit different in that I had to go to law school, I had to be admitted to the bar, so that's certainly a challenge. The other challenge is that law school and in many cases working for the large law firms, they don't prepare you for starting your own law firm. Very few places do. It's actually somewhat looked down upon. It's seen as, for some reason, a less successful route. In many legal institutions, being a solo attorney, going that entrepreneurial way is not seen as the successful route. So you have to find your own way. You have to find the resources that are available if you're looking to start a law firm, and you have to seek out good mentors. And that's really it's tricky.
And you mentioned mentors there. Do you still have mentors?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. There are attorneys that I call when I have questions. There are other solo practitioners that I've really reached out to and relied on, and they've been very helpful.
Did you have any doubts that delayed you when you started your business?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So this is, I would say I had doubts that delayed me, but they certainly didn't stop me. I knew that there were doubts, but my desire to do this was stronger than any doubt. I had doubts about my skill set, whether or not I knew enough to do this, having only practiced law for a few years before I started my firm. I had doubts about the financial success. People told me it couldn't be done. People told me that, being a solo corporate attorney helping businesses was a thing of the past, that nowadays everyone just went online and Googled their documents and created their own contracts and that no one would pay for it. So, yeah, there was certainly some doubt along the way. But at the end of the day, if your desire is strong enough, I could certainly overcome that.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned going online and finding the contracts, which I'm quite sure quite a few people do. What's the drawback to that?
So, the problem is, first of all, you don't know who drafted them. Oftentimes, these contracts were drafted by people who didn't know what they were doing, and there are glaring errors or problems in them to the extent that sometimes they're just not enforceable. Sometimes they're drafted in other jurisdictions, so they might be enforceable in, let's say, Canada or the UK or, in Brazil, but they're not enforceable in the US or vice versa. And the third issue that I think is overlooked is contracts are all the result of a process of negotiation. So when you're getting a contract online or any legal document online, you don't know what went into it. You don't know which side had a more advantageous day at the end of the day. Some contracts are certainly slanted towards either, let's say, the company or the distributor or the independent contractor or whoever. So you may very well be taking a contract that maybe isn't enforceable. And if it is enforceable, it might be slanted totally against you in really nuanced ways that you might not be able to tell at first blush.
Yeah. So the concept of perhaps cutting a few corners and saving a little bit money initially could cost you a lot later on, you're effectively saying there, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. And the legal structure on which your business is based is really the foundation. A good way to think of it is building a foundation for a house. Your business is a house, and the concrete foundation underneath it, that's all the legal documents and the legal structure that goes into it. If you're not really taking the time to set it up the correct way to protect your intellectual property and to create really good, effective contracts, the whole house is on a shaky foundation.
Yeah. What mistakes did you make that slowed your journey?
I think one thing that I could have done better is worked for a smaller firm for a time. I could have learned more from a smaller firm. Instead, I worked for a very large firm, and I have nothing against a large firm. I mean, they were great people, great experiences, but didn't necessarily prepare me for this chosen career path as well as it could have. And The other thing is I probably could have taken more classes in law school that were directly related to entrepreneurial law. I took several. There weren't that many that were offered, but I probably could have taken more. Instead, it's really been an intensive process of learning, reading everything I can on my own, and it's been good. But I probably could have done a few things better.
Yeah. So you said that you could have worked for a smaller law firm at first rather than a larger one. What difference would that have made for you?
So I think they're fundamentally ran differently, and this is interesting because many people don't really know it. Many people have very their experience with law firms is as a consumer, not necessarily from the other side. So I've seen it from the other side. Large law firms can be very, very good at what they do. They're very skilled. They've got great people working for them. They're well-educated attorneys, but they're less adept at helping small businesses. They're really geared towards helping large corporations. That was one of my frustrations working for large law firms and then working as in-house counsel for a large company. One of my frustrations was just seeing how large law firms were not accessible to small companies. Small law firms tend to operate differently, at least mine does, and they become accessible to people who need legal services. If you're starting a company and you need someone to help you review a contract, the last thing you want to do is get a bill in the mail for every, tenth of an hour that an attorney spoke to you at $500 an hour. It's a quick way to go out of business.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is the case, but is it not also the case that larger law firms tend to have people who specialize in certain areas more, whereas if you work for a smaller company, you're probably more likely to do more wider ranges of things? Would that be a right assumption?
To some extent, I think it is. Large law firms definitely have specialists in each area. They can afford to do that and can build the structure that way. So in a large law firm, you've got attorneys who do nothing but, let's say, antitrust litigation. You've got attorneys who do nothing but review mergers and acquisitions. So hyper specialized in certain areas. Some small law firms do follow the generalist path, and you'll find lawyers who say that, they do immigration and criminal defense and personal injury and business law all wrapped into one. And, you've got to wonder how much can be on the menu at once. Some law firms, but some smaller law firms do specialize. I mean, certainly I do, and there are others out there who do just one thing and endeavor to do that one thing really well. The flip side is because I specialize in just law for entrepreneurs and startups, if people come and ask me to help with other things, I don't dabble. I really don't dabble. I want to do what I do really well. So I do get some people who come to me that are potential clients that I can't help if they're looking for help with, a tax issue or personal injury law. I just have to refer them to a colleague who I know will help them. Yeah.
What are some of the things that you did before you started your business that'd be helpful tips to some of the listeners who haven't yet taken the first step on the entrepreneur way?
So the first thing I did is I learned everything I could. Everything. I mean, I spent hours and hours every night, scouring every resource I could find to learn about starting a law firm, what goes into it, and then to also learn about my chosen practice area. I want to be an expert in what I do. I want to be really well versed in what I do. So you've got to walk the walk, but you've got to talk the talk at the same time. It's not enough to just talk about it. You've also got to walk about it. So I took my time learning everything I could about this area of law and about starting a law firm. And I also took the time to seriously sit down and run financial projections to see if I could make this work under various scenarios. I think one reason that some entrepreneurs fail early on is they fail to set realistic goals and they fail to set realistic budgets and pro formas. And the last thing you want to do is have this great idea that you're working towards and you're seeing it build, but you're 3 months in and you're out of money. So you've got to go and rethink all your decisions. It really helps to budget right.
Yeah. Jared, what I'd like to do now is talk about the entrepreneurial journey a little bit more with you. Do you think culture is important from the beginning in a business?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you need a certain business culture in order to actualize your dream, in order to actually make your business a vision of yourself. I think the best businesses are businesses that reflect the kind of fundamental beliefs and the fundamental, I guess, ways of doing things of their founders. So when I started my law firm, I had a very clear business culture vision. I wanted a law firm that was unlike other law firms. One of the things I'm frustrated with, and I could probably talk about this for a long time, but one of the things I'm frustrated with is the lack of the legal industry's ability to adapt to technology and to adapt to the demands of clients, to the proliferation of startups and small businesses, entrepreneurs. It's still a very clunky model. So when I started my firm, the culture of being a startup-friendly law firm, a law firm that in fact acted like a startup, was really important to me. I wanted to be a lean startup like many of my clients. I wanted to be nimble. I wanted to be paperless. And I wanted to be able to relate to all my clients, not just as the lawyer, but as someone in the same boat as them.
Mm-hmm. So how have you made it so that your values on this idea of how the culture you want in your business translates through the people you employ?
Well, I follow startup culture very closely, and I try to ingrain it not only in myself and in the documents that we create and in all the stuff that we put out, but I hire and work with people who embrace the same ideals, who have the same vision. I think that's overlooked in hiring a lot. It's great to hire someone who has great credentials, and it's important. But another thing is making sure that their vision aligns perfectly with your business's vision. You can't have everyone pulling in a different direction. Everyone's got to have the same vision. Yeah.
One of the interviews I did with someone called Casey Eberhardt says you hire on skills and fire on attitude, and which I thought was quite an interesting way of putting that.
It is, and I think that happens. I've seen that. I've seen that in places I've worked. Unfortunately, I haven't had to experience it, but I've seen companies that have hired people who on paper, on their resumes, are great. I mean, they've graduated from fantastic schools and they've got great experience, but the business culture is just not a fit. The business sees itself one way, and the employee has a different way of managing, a different way of achieving the business's goals. And even if they've done a good job on paper, I've seen people get let go because the culture is not a fit. In the long term, the culture of your business is really important.
Yeah. Knowing what you know now, is there anything that if you'd known it when you started out would have helped you to shortcut the learning curve?
Yeah, so I guess this ties in a little bit to my answer before, but I'll elaborate on it a bit. I would have probably taken more classes in school, both in law school and in undergrad, on running a business, on entrepreneurship. I would have sat in, even in law school, I would have sat in on graduate business classes, just so I would have had a better idea about running a small business, running a law firm, running any business, managing employees, all of that good stuff. It's, I've now on my own time taken the effort to read about it, to learn about it, to follow it closely, but I should have done that more in college rather than taking, a basket weaving elective. I probably could have taken more business classes.
How much does gut feeling influence your decisions in your business?
Maybe a little too much. I really do follow my gut. I mean, it fits in also with the culture question. I have a very, very big vision for my firm, and I stick to it. And if I have a gut feeling about something, I'll follow it. I mean, I spend a lot of time working on spreadsheets. I try to stay organized. I have goals and plans and visions and 5-year plans and immediate 6-month plans. But if I have a really good hunch about something, I'll follow it.
Life is made of constant change, whether we like it or not. And many people say the only constant in life is change. Jared, how do you try to keep up with change?
Yeah, so this is, Richard, to go back to Richard Branson before, I think Richard Branson said, there's no point in starting your business unless you do it out of a sense of frustration. And part of that is the inability of my industry, of the legal world, to change, to accept change. So that frustrated me. It frustrated me that law firms were really poorly suited for helping small businesses. And I knew that the tools were out there to do it. There was no reason why law firms weren't doing it. I knew that, I could run a paperless office. I could run a really nimble law firm, and I could pass the savings along to my clients. I could offer things on a flat fee basis instead of an hourly basis, on a project basis. So I saw the change I saw in terms of what businesses were demanding from lawyers, and I saw the inability of law firms to meet it. So it's all about following that. So I was frustrated with the legal model, and I saw that there was a change, fundamental change taking place in the way people did business, and demanded that of their lawyers and accountants and professionals. And I think I took advantage of that. But now, like you said, the only constant is change. So things keep changing. They do. I try to survey my clients. I try to see what they would like better, what would work best for them. And I try to stay on top of industry trends so that I can be there when the next change happens.
With law firms, quite often they will do fairly rinse and repeat stuff and charge people for it in a manner that doesn't really reflect the fact that it's rinse and repeat, because it might be a letter or something that's almost a standard letter that they send out chasing a debt or something, and they charge a lot of money to do that. Is that the type of thing you're talking about when you're talking about charging a flat fee?
Yeah, that's certainly part of it. I charge a flat fee for a lot of projects, and if I have longstanding clients and they need something that is truly rinse and repeat, I'll give it to them for free. I'll give them a letter. I'll give them a non-disclosure agreement if it happens to fit their situation perfectly and I've already drafted it, and it'll take me 15 minutes to tweak it. I'll give it to a good client for free because I'd rather build a relationship than charge them an unnecessary and unethical fee. That said, there's also some misconception. I think a lot of people think everything is rinse and repeat, and some stuff certainly is. You're 100% correct. Mm-hmm. But there are subtle differences in every document. Some things do have to be researched, and it could take time. But to the extent that I can actually create a document quickly, I'd rather have a client be really happy that I could give them a quick document for free, because I know they'll come back and I know it'll build a long relationship with them.
What is your favorite book on entrepreneurialism, business, personal development, leadership, or motivation? And can you tell us why you have chosen it?
Yeah, sure. There's a few good ones. I'm going to go back to Arnold Schwarzenegger here, if you don't mind. So he actually has a fairly recent, I think it came out a few years ago, autobiography called Total Recall, My Unbelievably True Life Story. It is actually a fantastic book. It is... It's an autobiography that holds no punches. It gives a pretty clear look at his challenges. It doesn't gloss things over, and how he got to where he is. And I think it gives some good insight, especially into perseverance through all odds, perseverance through people telling you that either your dream is unattainable, or that your dream is too difficult, or that you should just do something more realistic. I mean, it's just a really good, well-rounded story.
Everyone, when you have a busy life, listening to audiobooks is a great way to expand your knowledge in the time when you may be doing other things, such as driving or when you're at the gym. We have a special offer for you of a free audiobook of your choosing. To choose your free audiobook, go to www.freeaudiobookoffer.com. As long as you've not already signed up, then you will qualify. Jared, what I'd like to do now is speculate about the future a little bit with you. What one thing would you do with your business if you knew that you could not fail?
It's easy. I would scale it. I would scale it up. I would love to bring on more attorneys, and I would love to do it in a way that's consistent with our culture, which is in a virtual way, in a remote way. I don't think that attorneys need to sit in Class A office space with a fresh flower bouquet every morning. I'd love to be able to bring attorneys on who would also be able to work remotely and in a low overhead way, so that we could help more people start businesses, help more people protect their businesses. But there are difficulties certainly in budgeting for it and in planning it. But if I could not fail, that would be my goal.
If the culture that you're creating in your business is different to the law industry as a whole, how do you manage to get people that you hire to translate to your way of doing things?
I think it's starting to come around. I think that the newer generation of attorneys have similar backgrounds, I guess, and similar outlooks. Now the world is changing so fast, and now you have attorneys who are graduating law school who have grown up in the online world, in the Facebook, Twitter world, for better or worse. But now everyone is growing up in this world, and I think that the change is not going to be just my firm. I think that I have found, and we will continue to see, lawyers who align with my sort of vision for where law is going. And I think we're going to see a fundamental change in the way legal services are provided to consumers and to entrepreneurs in the next 10 to 15 years.
What skill, if you were excellent at it, would help you the most to double your business?
Time management, definitely time management. I try very hard to manage my time well, but it is difficult. If you haven't been able to tell so far, I like to talk. So one problem is, not necessarily a problem, I guess, but one issue that comes up is I have clients. I give free consultations, and I have clients, and I'll spend a lot of time on the phone with them. And sometimes my whole day will be taken up by speaking to clients, and I certainly enjoy it. But then I find that suddenly it's 5 or 6 o'clock at night, and I haven't gotten much actual work done. So then I spend the whole night working. And then somewhere in there, I've got to find time to market. So if I could find a way to manage my time better so that I wasn't working 24/7, I would do it.
In 5 years from now, if a well-known business publication was publishing an article on your business after talking to your customers and suppliers, what would you like it to say?
I'd like it to say that I'm a nice guy, first and foremost. I like to have a good reputation. I don't want to be seen as the lawyer who's a shark. I don't want to be seen as the lawyer who is arguing every point. I want to be seen as someone who finds solutions. So first and foremost, I'd like them to say that I was helpful and that I was willing to actually listen to them and not argue every point.
We're now at the part of the show where you share 3 golden nuggets with us. So, Jared, what is your favourite quote and how have you applied it?
Okay, I know I've been teetering here between Richard Branson and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they both have some excellent quotes. So I'm going to actually go back to Arnold Schwarzenegger again here and give you one of his quotes, which is, "You can't climb the ladder of success with your hands in your pockets." I try to incorporate that in everything I do, and I think it means a lot. Everyone has a dream. Everyone, I don't care who you are, everyone has a goal. Everyone has a business goal. Everyone's thought of some great idea, and then it goes by the wayside. People forget about it. Real life takes over, obligations. But in order to actually make it happen, you've got to take action. You've got to do something to keep the ball moving. And that's the way I look at it. Every day, if I have goals, I write them down. I have a big whiteboard in my office. I write down my goals. And every day, I do something to advance each goal. And if I get to the end of the day and I haven't done at least one thing to advance each goal, I'm upset.
Do you have any favorite online resource that you can share with us?
Sure. One that I use, and I think is pretty accessible to everybody, not just lawyers or investors, is AngelList, angel.co. I think that it's a great resource to. It links companies, if you're not familiar with it, it links companies with angel investors online, but it also is a great way to see what's out there, to see what companies are up and coming, who is looking to raise money. So it gives you a good feel for what this startup market is doing at any given moment.
Okay. And what is your best advice to other entrepreneurs?
My best advice is that entrepreneurship and success in entrepreneurship is 95% tenacity and maybe 5% idea. It is about sticking to it and beating your head into a wall until it actually comes true and happens. People don't always know how hard you have to work at a given goal until you start to see successes. But once they start coming, it's the greatest feeling in the world. So tenacity, tenacity, tenacity.
Everyone, if you didn't manage to get a note of Jared's favourite resource or his favourite book, you can find the links on Jared's show notes page. Just go to the entrepreneurway.com and search for Gerard or Gerard Stark in the search box. Gerard, is there anything else that you'd like to add about your business?
I would like to encourage other people to look at what I've done or what I'm trying to do in my field and find ways to bridge it into their own fields, to find out in what ways their chosen field is lacking innovation or is unable to deal with innovation, and find ways just to chip away at that, just to find ways to make your business more accessible to other people.
Yeah. Gerard, you've come on here and you've talked about being a lawyer and obviously having a law firm. And actually what you've talked about is specialising and niching down to some extent, because your niche is obviously startups and business owners, which is something that a lot of businesses have to do, or a lot of people in business need to do. They need to niche down in business to get success. So it's been great hearing your advice. I mean, obviously your advice is great because you've given us advice on something which is useful to know in any case in that respect, but also from a point of view of not using these legal things that you can find online for free, because ultimately you may pay the price later on, which is very useful advice. So thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all your expertise and knowledge and experience.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome, Gerard. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to The Entrepreneur Way. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter @Neil D. Ball.